Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monacelli with another episode of my podcast, Multiple Voices. And today I have a former scientist turned author, and she's also an intuitive life coach. Say hello to Ulrika. Say hello, Ulrika. Ulrika
Hello.
Sullivan.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming to my show today. And Ulrika is talking to us from, she's on the East Coast. I know you're on the East Coast. Exactly where? Of the United States?
Yes, outside Boston.
Outside Boston. Okay, in Massachusetts, and originally from Sweden, right?
That's correct. Yes.
All right. So let's say our lives have been shared between this side and that side of the pond. She's passionate about helping busy women to connect with their intuition, their energy, and their true selves to find inner calm, their self-love, and balance in their life, and so that they can live from the heart with more ease and more naturally. She's the author of the book, Hear Ye, Wisdom Beyond What You Know. How to shift from being driven by the mind to living from the heart and intuition. Now, when was this published?
It was published this year, just in January. And so it's been out a couple of months now. I'm very excited about the message in the book.
And people can find this book in all, bookstores and Amazon, the electronic version?
Anywhere where books are sold, you can find this book.
All right. Yeah. And of course, in the description of this episode, I'm going to write all of your Pinterest, Instagram, and all of that, your Twitter, and people can contact you. Now, I'm so excited to be able to talk to you. Why? Because Ulrika wrote to me suggesting daily spiritual practices to help you focus on your soul purpose and energy. Let's lead with that. What is it all about? And if you can enlighten us, boy, I'm going to take notes.
Yes. I wanted to bring in the importance of spiritual practice for a couple of reasons, because part of the promise of stepping away from this mind-driven life that many of us have lived for a long time, where we spend our lives in self-doubt or worry or that feeling of all the scenarios that the mind can make up, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I got this question, and that's part of why I wrote the book too. Like, how can we get to a point where we just are, like when life is really closer to us in the sense that we just know. And for me, I've gone through this process of stepping out of the mind and into the heart and learning myself how to listen to my intuition. And I wanted to teach that to others because it's a life-changing process. And the heart and the center of that, I found, is to bring in a spiritual practice. And spiritual practice may have some, myths around it. It has to be a certain way, or it has to be a certain, set of rules or so. But
let's say this, for you, Ulrika, what is spirituality?
Spirituality is really, for me, our connection to the universe and the whole and oneness.
Okay,
that's spirituality for me.
All right, so go on.
And that's really the same frequency that we carry in our heart.
Okay.
So this whole journey of connecting to our heart and intuition and spirituality, or whatever you want to call it, it's this remembering of who we truly are and our connection to the whole.
All right. Now, the key word in the idea that you're bringing here is your soul purpose. And why do I ask that, and why do I highlight that, is that I get asked over and over, what is my soul purpose?
Yes.
Now, and it's an ambiguous question, and it's almost an oxymoron to ask in one sense. So please tell us something about that. I would really love that.
Yes. And our soul's purpose, in my opinion, that is our unique imprint in the world. Our soul's purpose is when we can remember and identify ourselves with our own uniqueness.
Does that mean, oh, I'm an author, therefore people can identify me?
Well, the soul's purpose that we want, that wants to embody itself through us, is a process of going from identifying ourselves with, for example, measures of success on the outside,
Right,
and measures that somebody has told us is being successful, for example, to shift that into really feeling our life's purpose and mission coming from the inside, and that expressing itself in the way that is natural to us. Because the reason I'm bringing that up is that for so many years we have identified ourselves and reaching for other people's success.
Yes.
Instead of going the other way, going inwards and getting to know ourselves, in the sense that removing conditioning patterns and behaviors that may have been, we have learned from somebody else, or somebody told us we were something, or identified ourselves through external measures. And so that's the journey to kind of shift it upside down and kind of go inside, allowing ourselves to connect with that uniqueness and now the space where we just are.
It almost sounds, and I'm being the devil's advocate here, it almost sounds to be a contradiction, because on the one hand, you say a soul's purpose and spirituality, as you defined it, means a connection to the universe. But then you talk about our, going inside, and it almost seems contradictory. Can you clarify that?
It may feel contradictory because many of us are separating ourselves from the universe. In my opinion and my experience, we are the same.
We are the same here. What have you seen someone, or you yourself? When were you disconnected, or when was that person disconnected? What were they doing?
Yes, I can give you a story from my own life.
Go.
For many, many years, I spent in the corporate world, and you could have looked at me back then to say, oh, she's like the ultimate businesswoman, successful woman with a very high level career, young family. How does she do it all? How does she
do it all?
Yeah,
I know.
and that ultimately brought me to my rock bottom, actually.
Yes.
And the reason for that.
Can I ask you, if I'm not being too bold, what did your rock bottom look like?
Yeah, it looked like I got laid off from my job. And why it was so detrimental to me was that all that time I had identified myself with my career. My career was me. It was my self-identity. So when I lost my job, it ripped my self-identity away.
Okay.
So
that's a self-identity, and you're saying self as if it's ego, right?
Yes, exactly. So I spent many, many years on what I call autopilot. And that is really the most disconnected from my soul's purpose I had ever been. And I can...
Wait a minute.
So if that gives you an example.
No, I want to, in Italian, we say, extend an olive branch. You say that in English too. In terms of being on autopilot in and of itself is not detrimental. I mean, pilots do it all the time. They fly planes like that. They survive like that. We survive on autopilot. We go there because we need to survive and leave out so there is a purpose for that. But you're saying that connection if you stay in autopilot, you will be completely disconnected from the universe. Is that what you're saying?
At least that was my experience, yes, because I was not living. I was not, if I compare to now, now when I have a different reference point,
right.
I was not connected to my soul's purpose at that time. I am now. And that was a completely different life experience back then, what I've gone through and experienced now. So, yeah.
Well, so let's say that at one point you left the corporate world, correct?
Yes, correct.
And how long ago was that?
So this must have been more than 5 years now. It's coming up on 5 years.
Okay, so it's fairly recent.
It is fairly recent. Yeah.
But another thing that you mentioned to me that I would like to highlight is you at one point you write, there's got to be more, and you mentioned that you have suggestions on how each individual could honor. You use this word honor that I like. How people can honor their unique contribution to the whole. Why I'm putting this here, why I'm stressing this now, is because you talked about soul purpose, a person's uniqueness, and I think, and by extension, their contribution, their unique contribution. So I'm thinking, then there must be something in a soul's purpose that has to do with honoring your unique contribution. I think the logical reasoning process is there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can call it logical, but it's bigger than that.
Right. No, it is bigger than that. But what I'm trying to get to, since I get that question so often, what is my soul's purpose? Does this mean that it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief, a thief, that you can't honor? That doesn't necessarily come into defining your contribution, does it?
In my experience, our contribution, if we want to look at the actual contribution, it's the embodiment of the soul's purpose. And the contribution is kind of the result. It can be various expressions, but it depends on what expression we are choosing, right? What the contribution is.
Okay,
it's an energy, right? It's an energy that
wants to come out. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and I don't want to do this, but I need to.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you have a client, you have a customer, you have you talk about women having, coaching women to find their own way. Can you give me an example of a client of yours that had trouble honoring their unique contribution, and when they come to you, and then when they leave you or after working with you, how did it change? What do we see, or what do they do that is different from the beginning? Pick any client, call her Miss X and YZ, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. An example would be that is a very common scenario of a client that comes to me that feels stuck. They don't really know what their next step is, or they don't feel like they're really alive. They're unhappy with a number of things.
Okay, so this is from any kind of social extraction, rich, poor, middle class, it doesn't matter.
There is some essence of frustration, right? Within that many clients come to me and say, I'm not happy with this, or help me navigate so that I can move forward.
Okay. And what changes in the process?
What changes is their level of self-awareness. As they work with me, I am trained to help people navigate, to learn more about who they truly are. And that is a body of self-awareness that each person either can choose to kind of learn, or you can go on as everywhere, as you've done all time before,
Right.
which means that the difference is, do I want to learn something new about myself? Do I want to change a belief I have about myself? And often it comes with the willingness to step into the unknown.
Yeah.
And learn something new. And that's the journey I often take every client on. And out they step in with an increased body of knowledge about themselves. That leads to more self-empowerment, sovereignty.
Is it very common in these cases for women to quit their jobs and change?
If it's common,
yeah.
It's starting to actually become much more common, because I've noticed an increase in women who are willing to open up their creativity to a whole new level. And in that process, they realize I'm aligned to something, or a job or a relationship that is not matching with me. And the willingness to kind of step out in the unknown is getting greater, I feel.
Okay. What about the number of times, or the percentage, or the trend to leave a partner if they have a partner, completely change their partner?
That is a big step. But in the journey of becoming sovereign, it is about learning how to set energetic boundaries. And sometimes those boundaries includes boundaries to be set with a partner and speaking their truth. So it happens, but it often comes down the road. Because the journey of becoming self-empowered or sovereign, whatever word we want to use is a process of self-discovery first. It's not to go out and make all these decisions right away.
Right.
It's at a place when somebody have come to a point where I feel that this is the right step for me. I am standing on my own 2 feet, and I'm ready to make that decision, or as ready as one can be, right? But so the outcomes of this journey of self-discovery are not always seen in the beginning. It's an inner journey, an inner. So the outside doesn't necessarily have to change drastically. It's an inner journey.
Have you ever had the experience of a client coming to you, going through a cycle or a certain number of sessions? I don't know how you work, but then going out into, like you say, stepping out into the world and enacting different changes or modifications, or living a different type of purpose, but they come back to you? Has that ever happened?
Happens. It happens, because I always keep in contact with each client, because it's important. We, as you point out, it's a good point to make. There are cycles in our life. And often when somebody comes to me, I can tell right away that they're divinely guided to me just by looking at their astrology, or how, at what phase they are in life. I can definitely relate to it. But then there's, a number of cycles we go through. So maybe 3 years from now, they come back, because now they've started another level of their growth. So yes, it happens. But often it's this, I want clients to not having to come back. It is about, that self-empowerment, that I teach them the tools that they will need to come back to their own center over and over.
I'm laughing because as you said that, I was thinking of my children, the way my mind worked when they were growing up, and I'm thinking, when are they going to, I have 2 boys, when are they going to introduce me to girlfriends? None of them. And both of them introduced me to their girlfriends at a wedding we went to. And so there was a lot of stuff there. And that's how I felt. I want them to be so happy so they don't come back. Because if they're going to come back, well, that's going to be trouble for both of us. Ulrika, thank you so much. Do you have a copy of your book in around you?
I do.
Good,
I have
good. Show
here
it. Bring it
Wisdom
close
Beyond
to
What
the
You
camera.
Know. Yeah.
Wisdom Beyond What You Know. Okay. And it came
Yeah.
out this year, 2020.
It came out this year, yes. And you can find it anywhere where books are sold. So
all right. All
yeah.
right. How many pages so we know how long a read it is?
It's and the
chapters? How many?
paperback version is 202 pages. So it's
a read.
it's
Yeah. Mhm.
it's
How many
not
chapters
like
do you have?
huge.
How many
18 chapters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
And what stands out about this book, in my opinion, is that it's at every chapter there is a exercise. So I call it action. Yeah, it's an actionable spiritual self-help book in the sense that
is what we want. Mm-hmm.
You want to not just get some theory. I didn't want people to feel that they don't know what to do. Right. This book is giving you 18 exercises as part of it, including my own stories and analysis of heart-centered living, as opposed to living up in your mind. So yeah, it's a handy book that way.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, Ulrika. Honestly. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're a delight to talk to. Bye.